Everyone, please welcome to the stage, Ryan Grant.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step
Let's give another round of applause to Barry. This guy's an inspiration in more than one way. All right, so 10 years ago, almost to the day, my wife and I were at a conference. And the speaker was the head futurist for IBM. And at the time, I didn't know what a futurist was. And it turns out a futurist is responsible for helping the leadership of an organization to anticipate, right, to prepare for, and ultimately shape the future decisions of that organization in light of, changing economic and technological and societal changes. So we were blown away with what we heard and saw, and quite frankly, a little scared. So we did what any crazy parents would do, right? We went up to him and cornered him at the after party. Spent 30 minutes, and I was like, hey, his name was Paul Zakopoulos. And I said, Paul, I have a 1-year-old daughter. Should I take away her toys and have her start coding and building computers? And if any of you want to know the answer, it's off topic. Find me afterwards if you have kids. The answer is fascinating and not what you think. But we asked about the mortgage industry. And at the time, this was 2015, the future was so far away, right? It just seemed so untouchable at the time that I didn't give it a lot of credit, right? But in reality, I actually owe a lot to Paul, right? Because looking back, he was pretty influential in my career and the career of a lot of people around us. And so I want to first say thank you to Paul, right, wherever he is, and I want to repay that. So today, in our 30 minutes together, my job is to be your futurist. Right? My goal here is to help you anticipate what's coming in this business. Right? To help you not only prepare for, but look forward to and be optimistic about the future, because you should be. But most importantly, to ensure that everybody here has the opportunity to shape that future. Right? So this doesn't happen to us. It happens with us and by us. Right, but there's a group of people, not only in this room, but in our industry, that is in a bit of a danger zone. And I'll explain that, and you can figure out if you're in that group. So if your business right now is successful, right? If you're doing well, if you're comfortable, if you're running a good playbook, and you are going to continue running that same playbook, you're going to want to take some notes. Right? This is going to be important for you. Because the trap I'm seeing is there is a trap of success. Right? To be successful in 2025, whether it's top 1% or whatever it is, that's no small feat. But the trap is that if you believe that what you're doing today will continue to be successful tomorrow, our futurist buddy Paul would tell you that's more often than not true. Right? And what you need to be doing instead is kind of looking around the corner. Right? As a leader, whether you're leading yourself or leading other people, anticipate what's coming. Prepare for it. And what he would say is, be ready to make a pivot or a shift or a change in your business at a moment's notice as soon as you realize that is necessary. Right? And that moment is right now. It's today. Now, to help illustrate this, I want to take you back a little bit here. So this is me. When I started in 2011, yes, we used to dress like that, promise. But this was one of the most prosperous decades of my life, right? It was an incredible time in the mortgage industry from 2011 to 2022. And Steve Jobs says as well, he says you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can really only connect them looking back. And so I spent a lot of time looking back at this time, and it's going to help us really hit home what I'm talking about. So what I want to do is I want to share with you the biggest challenges I had during the best time the mortgage industry has ever seen. One, I was selling high rates. I was in Orange County, and every single client, they could find a half point lower, a quarter point lower interest rate just by throwing a ball and hitting someone in Orange County. Right? And because of that, I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't know why I was selling higher rates. I didn't really have a clue about the economics. I didn't know why I was paid what I was paid. I was just selling what I was told to sell. And because that wasn't working often, right, I struggled with confidence. I didn't know why me, right? When a client says, well, why you if someone's a quarter point lower, and I say, well, my customer service and speed and closing on time, and I say all the same BS that everyone says, then I'm not really confident in my value proposition. I didn't really have one. My lead generation was inconsistent, right? My business development was challenged. I was on a hamster wheel trying to find new realtors, new financial planners, new referral sources, and I had a hard time telling them what made me unique. And then I didn't really have technology, but look, no one had technology, right? We were all using the same antiquated stuff, so I didn't feel terrible about it, but it really did create scalability challenges. I would go home to my wife one day and be like, we are massively overstaffed, we don't have enough business. 2 days later, we need to hire more people, it's crazy. Right? That was my life for a very long time, and it created a lot of stress. And lastly is that I was really on an island, and I was looking for a lot of solutions on my own, right? I have to go find these solutions, and then I have to try and bring them back and kind of shoehorn them into my organization somehow. Right? And that took a lot of time, energy, and I wasn't great at it oftentimes. So, team, this is the list of challenges during the most prosperous, right, most advantageous market we've ever had, but does it look familiar? To me, it's pretty eerily similar to what I'm hearing from most people in the business today. Right, let's just test that theory. You don't have to answer out loud, but just answer yes or no in your head. Do you feel like you get undercut with rates a lot of times and people are choosing cheaper rates? Right? Do you feel like you know where every dollar goes in the flow of the economics of the industry? And you understand why you get paid and how you get paid and all that works? Right? Do you struggle with confidence? If someone says why you when you can't say rate, speed, service, close on time, education, relationship, if you can't say those words, can you say why you? Right? Are you lead generating? Are you creating exclusive leads? Are people coming to you in droves? Are you having enough conversations? And then are you able to go take that and work with the absolute best realtors and builders in your market? Do you have technology that removes 95% of the work off your plate and allows you to scale and stay in your genius zone? Do you feel like you're on an island? See what I'm getting at? So this begs the question, if we have the same problems in the hardest market we've ever seen that we've had in the best market we've ever seen, why don't we just solve them today? So that's what we're going to do, right? Because look, the past was forgiving. You could have these problems in the past, and it was, you could outrun them, right? The market was, there's enough tailwinds to outrun those. But not in the future. If we don't solve these problems now, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. So that's what I want to do today. Right? I want to share with you the 5 levers to win and grow in a new mortgage market. And look, I believe this to my core. I think this is the playbook. And if one of you, I really would encourage you, this is like a sincere ask. If you can think of something that would be involved in the professional mortgage future that is not under one of these 5 categories, please come find me and tell me. Right? I spent so much time distilling down, like, what does the mortgage professional of the future need? And it falls in these 5 categories. It's not easy, right? But it's possible. And I'll tell you, look, I've been to conferences before where I was successful, and I've been to conferences when I wasn't. When I wasn't successful, when I wasn't happy with my business, I was much more open-minded. I took a lot of notes. I was much more open to change. But when I was really successful, I'd show up and maybe I'd jot down a few things, but I thought, I'm doing pretty well, I don't need to change. This is a warning. Please don't think that way. Please stay open-minded, right? And ask yourself these really hard questions, because your future depends on it, right? The future of the people that you lead depend on it. And I'm going to say I have 20 minutes left. There's no way I can dive deep in all 5 of these areas in 20 minutes. Right? But at the end, there'll be a way for you to download, essentially access webinars. We've done an hour-long webinar on each one of these 5 levers. And I would really encourage you to watch them, because I think it's going to be impactful. So let's dive in. First is lead generation and business development. This has to change. We cannot run the same old playbook. And that was my playbook, right? Shaking hands, kissing babies, open houses, talking to realtors, right? It was all referral. I almost never got to the client first. That has to change. We're seeing it in every headline, right? Vertical integration. Mortgage company buys real estate, lead site, buys servicer, right? Tip to tail. Dave was talking about it earlier. Well, it's going to be harder and harder to get to the client if that's the case, right? Your realtor's not going to get to the client first, right? So we have to have a strategy to get to the client first, and this is not buying leads, right? This is getting to your sphere. This is utilizing social media. This is generating exclusive lead business. Why? Because that's how you're going to do real business development, right? We have to partner not just with real estate agents, but with real partnerships with the best real estate agents. You've probably heard this stat a couple times. 74% of realtors didn't help one family in 2024. So when you're taking your agents to lunch or doing happy hour, if there's 10 of them there, 7.5 can't help you. Right? 92% of business is done by the top 10% of real estate professionals. And it's harder and harder to crack in to that group, right? Because they want real partnerships where you're bringing as much business to the table as they are, right? Where you're participating with them in some semblance of economics. That's how you crack into that group. And of course, we need our associate partnerships. We mainly need our associate partnerships for us to refer to, right? Because if I tell someone my value proposition, I sure as heck better have the right partners to put them in touch with, right? And then obviously, goal would be for them to refer us as well. Becoming a builder lender. This is something that's very challenging to do in today's market because there's an entrenched group of people that have been in that space. But the builder business is the most susceptible to disruption out of any segment of our industry today, right? With the right products, with forward commitments, with lead generation, with the ability to help them market their products, there's not a lot of people out there that are able to do that. Right? So have this be a big part of your lead generation and business development. Next is stop calling your database. Yes, I said it. Right? Coming from the guy who is hyper passionate about long-term value to your clients, if you called 100 of your past clients, maybe 2 of them out of 100, you would have an actionable opportunity to help them. The other 98, you're going to get information, you're going to help them plan for the future, you're going to help them navigate changes and evolutions of their life. You're going to be hyper valuable, but it shouldn't be you. Someone on your team should have that job. A client success manager, an enterprise level person, somebody that is a member of your team should be adding value to your clientele so you can stay focused on lead generation and business development. Somebody has to call them, it just shouldn't be you. Corporate affinity partnerships. This really is kind of a low bar. Like every one of your clients probably has a job, right? Which means that you have the opportunity to engage with the HR manager, the leader of the organization. My group was able to become the preferred lender for Facebook. They had 40,000 employees. And we did it through our value proposition strategy, right? And then again, it all snowballs into turning one client into 4. Right? If we get to the client first, whether it's through our affinity partnerships, whether it's through our builders, whether it's through our lead generation activities, right? We have the ability to exponentialize that. You then become the tip of the spear, right? As opposed to a part of it in some capacity. So we need to work really hard at this aspect of the business because everything is going to then waterfall from there. Once you have the lead, you need to be able to convert it. You need to be able to tell the client why you, and we have to stop racing to the bottom. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I hear people, oh, I just told them to send me the LE and I'll match it, or I'll beat it. Like, for God's sakes, if everyone did that, this whole industry would collapse. Can we stop, please? Instead, let's tell the client what makes us unique. Let's tell the client what makes us different. And we've broken this down into 3 areas. 30% of the value to the consumer is before the transaction ever starts. If someone's trying to figure out, hey, why would I work with you? right? So-and-so's a quarter point lower. Of course they're a quarter point lower. They have to be. Right? They don't help you at all in any material way before the transaction starts. Whereas we give you education and analysis, we help increase your offer acceptance rate, we save you money on the price of the home, we help you look like cash, and we use seller subsidies to lower your mortgage payment. Who else does that? I've never heard of that. Right? It's because most lenders aren't talking about any of it. They don't focus on before. Most lenders only talk about the 10%, which is the during the transaction, and that's where we're trying to find our value. Let's stop doing that. The 10% is pretty inconsequential. Spoiler alert, technology is going to do almost all the 10%. So let's stop talking about it as if we really matter there. Right? Yes, we're going to have confidence and clarity. We're going to have a perfect loan process, and we're going to be fast, and we'll communicate every step of the way. But any lender can say that. And most lenders do say that. Client only finds out if they're truthful after the fact. But the most important part, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the reason why you referred to me, the reason why we are one of the fastest growing organizations in the country is because clients choose us because of our long-term commitment to help you not just own a home, but to become a successful homeowner. Right? You're going to be assigned a teammate of mine who is a client success teammate who is proactively going to help you grow your generational wealth. We have a perfect mortgage promise to ensure that you're always in the right home and the right loan at the right time. Right? We're going to be very proactive in our approach, and I'm going to show you everything we're going to do every week, every month, every year. Right? And we're going to help you and your family create a path to financial freedom that, to be honest, most of our clients wouldn't have without us. This is a value proposition that you can be confident in. Right? You can share with people without a doubt. But a lot of this has to be enterprise level, right? It has to be supported by a group or community in some way, and we'll get to that. Next thing is mortgage economics. I spent most of my young career trying to figure this out, this black box. And this is an important disclaimer. This is not me telling you that you need more of the pie. That's actually not going to help. Right? This is me telling you that you need to know what's in the pie. Right? And you need to be confident in how that pie is shared. Because without it, you're not really a business owner. You're an employee. So alignment is incredibly important here. Right? You need to be an aligned owner and aligned business partner with whomever you're in partnership with. And to start that, you need to believe you're a business owner. So let me ask you a question. If I asked anyone in the audience, do you want to start a business with me? And you're like, what do you got? I said, well, here's the thing. During really challenging times, we're going to have to tighten our belt. We're going to make less money, right? We're going to lower our marketing spend. Most people would say, no big deal. That's just kind of what you do during hard times, right? That's how business owners think. Well, here's the upside, right? When there's an abundance of revenue, when there's a lot of extra margin, when there's more money coming in, well, then we're just going to give that away to someone else. Right? So we get the downside, but no upside. Who here wants to sign up for that? 99% of the mortgage industry is doing that right now. That's the model they've signed up for. Right? And that's not a business owner. And we have to change that. All right? So ask, do you have 100% transparency, and do you know what that means? Right? When you find a client, when you get the client to trust you, when you get the client to choose you, right? When you get that client all the way through fulfillment, you've done all that work. Are you paid like an employee, or do you get to see all the fruits of your labor? This is why there's an alignment problem in the industry, right? The loan officer just wants to go to the bottom of the rate sheet, take the business exception, and earn the client. Because why? That's how they get paid. The mortgage company wants the exact opposite. But there's not an aligned partnership there. And that's a problem. And it will be a worse problem as this race to the bottom continues. Right? And then are you aligned with your organization? There's a ton of companies out there that will like, hey, I'll take $500, that's it. Right? I'll take X number of basis points, that's it. That's not really an alignment that you want. Because to build the technology of the future, to lead generate in a way that is meaningful, right? To create product, to have the right systems and processes in place, right? Your organization needs revenue. The question is, are you aligned in how that revenue works? And most people aren't. They just don't know it, right? It's not available to them. And then lastly, this is a big one, margin matters. It really does. You know, it's so unfortunate that I see people just saying, oh, I just need to get cheaper, I need to get cheaper, I need lower margin, I need lower margin. Like, no, you don't. I promise you don't. Right? Rocket is one of the highest margin mortgage companies in the country. They don't play the margin game. Why are we? So really understand your economics. It's going to be important for your future, your team's future, your clients. Next is technology, team, and scale. Again, you know, I've been in this business for a very long time, and I've been in almost every mastermind you can think of, and in the room with all the top originators, and I ask everyone the same question. What do you attribute your success to? And I've heard every answer possible, but you know what I've never heard? Technology. There's not one top producing originator that I know that attributes their success to technological advancement. We are all actually successful in spite of pretty bad, antiquated technology. And yeah, there's a lot of people trying to solve that problem, but the key to technology is really for market share, right? Because I genuinely believe that the best mortgage professionals of the future will help 50 to 100 families a month. And they'll do it in an 8-hour day, and they'll do it with grace, and they'll actually be more valuable with their client than they would maybe helping 5 to 10. Technology will take so much off of our plate, right? It will help us stay in the lane of doing what we do best. Right? It's going to create scalability for every team member. And if you're a leader of a team, you should be incredibly, doggedly, vicious about finding technology. Because most support teammates are the ones that are in the most danger. But if that support team member can go from helping 10 to 15 families a month to 50 to 75 a month, right? We can empower them to be more meaningful and help more families, then they have a safer job. Right? But that's our responsibility as leaders, is to create that for them, to take them to a place where that's possible. Team structure, I was awful at this for the first 4 or 5 years of my career. I never knew who to hire. I never knew what they should do. I never knew how to train them. I didn't know how to interview them. I didn't really know how to pay them, and when they got on board, I didn't really train them, nor did I lead them well. So they didn't stick around for very long, right? And then I'd have this hamster wheel, they'd hire and fire, and you know, you do that so many times, you're just like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it on my own. But in reality, it shouldn't be your job to do that, right? This is where an aligned partnership comes into play, right? Your community, your organization, whomever it is, your coaching group, they should have a defined playbook for exactly who you hire, when you hire them, how you pay them, what their vision is, who trains them when they come on board, and who leads them in perpetuity. If that is your job as the originator, that's almost untenable. But yet, we still do it because we don't know how else to solve for it. And then lastly is that we need to be in our genius zone. All right, we learned about this in L360, Tim Brahim's coaching group. The Loan Atlas teaches it. Your genius zone is when you do things that are not just high return on investment, but they're incredibly high return on your energy. Right? When you can do this 8 hours a day and go home and you go from 5th gear all day at work to 6th gear with your family. If you're not in your genius zone, you could work all day, you could actually make a lot of money, but then you go to 3rd gear when you get home, and your family gets a worse version of you. That's because you're not in your genius zone. You're doing things that are, not return on energy positive. But technology will keep you in your genius zone. All right? It will allow you to do the 5% of the job that is most meaningful for your client and most meaningful for you. And the last is community. I cannot stress this enough. I think this might be, it's questionable, but I think this is probably one of the most important things you can have, but it's probably the most undervalued of all of them. There is superpower in having a good community. You have the end of isolation. You're not on an island when you have a great community of people around you. Right? I was talking to Lynn Reed in the back there earlier, and I said, we need this right now. Right? Not just to learn, but to be around each other, right? To create a level of energy that we didn't have. And a lot of people miss that, and that's why they come to these things. They want that community, they want that energy. But you shouldn't leave here and go back to isolation. Right? When you have a community, you have a shared identity and mission. You're a patriot with the person next to you, not a mercenary. You have inspiration and you have realization. I've been a part of companies that were massive, but there's not collaboration, right? There's not shared coaching, there's not shared best practices. Everybody's just kind of figuring it out on their own. And so I had to go find community, right? And this is not a plug, right? But if you haven't gone and checked out the Loan Atlas, you should. It is an incredible community. I'm inspired by that group of people every day and every week, right? And I realize things about myself as a person, right, as a professional, that I wouldn't have known if I wasn't around a community of people that were like-minded and rowing in the same direction. Right? The ideas I get from that group, right? The ideas I get from our group. We had a guy Instagram me the other day. He's like, hey, we need to be doing more assessments for our clients. And a couple back and forth, and we started it. Right? Now it's underway. We're in execution mode. But it's because we think alike, right? We're in a community that's all headed in the same direction. Now we can execute faster. And that's the last one, is execution. I can't tell you how many times I left this exact event with a notebook full of amazing, game-changing, career-changing ideas, only to get back and realize I can't do half of them, right? I don't have the technology, I don't have the compensation, I don't have the revenue model, I don't have the team structure, right? I don't have a community to help me execute. When you have a community, you can do almost anything. And there's two paths for community. There's your internal community, that's going to be your organization, right? Your company that you work for or you work with. And then there's going to be your external. If you don't get the level of collaboration and idea sharing and best practices and coaching, if you're not getting that internally, you got to go find it externally. And there's some amazing, communities out there that solve for that biggest problem, but please don't feel like you're on an island. Now is not a safe time to be on an island. So look, these are the 5 things, and as I said, if you just want to scan this QR code, we do an hour-long webinar on all 4 of these that are already done, and then we have the 5th one, which is community. That's coming up on July 15th, and you can sign up for that. I'll also send you a recording of this, and we'll send you the deck, the presentation deck, so you have it all as well. I really want to encourage everyone to lean into this. Right? The next decade that we have ahead of us is one of the most opportunistic, fulfilling opportunities that we have really ever had. I think through what we were previously, right, when there was just massive tailwinds. And it felt like we were successful. Right? But the future of this industry, it depends upon people getting uncomfortable. Right? It depends upon people being willing to change. And I know that's not easy to ask, right? Because a lot of us are doing okay right now. A lot of us are doing well. But think through this, right? Think about, we have these 5 challenges, right? These 5 areas where we can grow and improve. They're always going to exist. They're not going away. They're going to get harder. So why in God's earth wouldn't we work our tails off to solve them now? Think about it, right? A world where you wake up and you generate leads like crazy. You work with the best agents. You work with the best realtors, the best builders in the market. And because of that, you have a high level of confidence, right? You can unabashedly tell someone why you are you. Right? You have an economic structure where it's in complete alignment. You are truly a business owner in partnership with an organization. You have technology that removes 95% of what you do, allowing you to be your best self every day. And the coolest part is you get to do it with a community of people that inspire you, that make you feel safe. and that create a very fulfilling opportunity for your future. But look, that's not some like crazy utopian far off future, right? That exists today. That opportunity is here, but not for everyone. That opportunity and that future only exists for people who make a choice. Right? Right now, you know the 5 biggest challenges that you're going to face, that you're facing today. And I challenge you to find me a 6th. But knowing them is one thing. Making a choice to do something about them is the important part. Right? The people who own those things, the people who practice those things, the most importantly, the people who lead themselves and their teams to solve those, that's the group that's going to have that future. And you have to lead yourself and your team even though you might have a good playbook now. And that's the hardest thing to do, is a success pivot. But the next decade of this industry, it belongs to the people who are bold enough to adapt now. Right? The people who are wise enough to prepare for a future that we know is coming. And the people who are courageous enough to lead themselves and their teams away from mediocrity, right, away from potential extinction, to a world where the next decade will make the last one look insignificant. And that's hard. I know it is. But if there's anyone who's going to do it, it's probably this room. Right? You guys are here. You're investing in yourself. You want to get better. And I can tell you, me personally, I am super excited to help every single one of you do that. So please connect with me on Instagram, message me, call me, email me, text me, if I can help in any way. We have an obligation to an industry that has been very fortuitous to us, let's put it that way. Right? This industry has created an amazing opportunity for us and for the people that we serve. So I just want to say thank you in advance to all of you for helping build a mortgage industry that is new and a mortgage industry that is better, not just for you, but for everybody here. So thank you guys in advance. Appreciate you being here. See you soon.